You don't get to silence me just because I'm a black woman with a brain." The room went still. The gavel paused midair in Judge Joe Brown's hand. Cameras clicked, spectators froze, and Jasmine Crockett, she didn't flinch. Her voice, clear and sharp, cut through the courtroom like a blade. But how did we get here? Why was a sitting congresswoman clashing with a once-respected judge in a public forum broadcast across the nation? And how did this moment ignite a firestorm that no one, especially Judge Brown, was prepared for? Let's go back just 2 weeks before that explosive exchange. It all started with what was supposed to be a simple televised town hall on justice, an event hosted by a bipartisan panel in Atlanta. The goal? To address rising tensions between law enforcement, judicial bias, and systemic inequality. Jasmine Crockett, known for her fiery speeches and fearless advocacy, had been invited to offer her perspective. Judge Joe Brown, semi-retired and increasingly controversial, was brought in for balance. From the moment Jasmine walked into the studio, something was off. She felt it, the way Judge Brown avoided her handshake, the smirk, the quiet dismissiveness masked behind Southern charm, but Jasmine had seen worse. She stayed focused. The first hour of the panel was tense but civil. Jasmine, poised in a Navy suit, outlined facts about racial disparities in sentencing. She cited Department of Justice data, human rights reports, and even personal stories from her own district. The audience nodded along, some visibly moved. Then it happened. Judge Brown leaned forward, his voice syrupy with condescension. "You know, little lady, you've got passion, I'll give you that. But what you lack is experience. You've never sat on the bench. You've never sentenced a criminal. You're speaking from emotion, not wisdom." The silence was deafening. Even the moderator looked stunned. Jasmine inhaled slowly. She placed her notes down. And then, without raising her voice, "Sabayitiisis," she replied. "Experience doesn't give you the right to belittle facts, Judge, and I will not be talked down to like I'm in your courtroom from '98. A ripple of laughter and applause broke out, but Judge Brown's eyes darkened. He didn't expect her to push back, especially not like this. The segment went viral within hours. Clips flooded social media. Hashtags trended. Crockett clapback. Hashtag Judge Brown out of line. Hashtag Town Hall Trainwreck. But this was only the beginning, because what the cameras didn't catch was the email. An anonymous message landed in Jasmine's inbox that night. The subject line, "Check the judge's record, it's worse than you think." Curious? You should be. Because what Jasmine found next would shake the very foundation of the justice system she vowed to reform. Don't forget to leave a comment. What would you have done in Jasmine's place? And if you're ready for the real twist, make sure you're following. The email was brief, no name, no greeting, just a single sentence and a PDF attachment. He buried more than cases. Start with docket number 30478. Jasmine Crockett sat alone in her apartment, the city lights of D.C. flickering outside her window. She hesitated. She wasn't new to anonymous tips, but something about this one felt targeted, precise. She clicked open the PDF. It was a scanned court document from 2002, State of Tennessee versus Marcus Delaney. The case didn't ring any bells. A young black man charged with armed robbery. Convicted. Sentenced to 22 years by Judge Joe Brown. Nothing unusual until she read the trial transcript. The prosecutor admitted mid-trial that the gun in question had no fingerprints. The victim had misidentified the suspect twice before pointing to Marcus. And the defense attorney, appointed by the state, had filed no objections. Yet Judge Brown had denied a mistrial motion without so much as a pause. Jasmine's stomach turned. She spent the next 3 hours buried in court records, case after case, dozens of them, almost all involving young black men sentenced under Brown's gavel. Patterns emerged: questionable evidence, ignored objections, denied appeals. And then, a name she recognized, Anthony Tone Reeves, a grassroots organizer who disappeared from public view after a conviction in 2005, sentenced by Judge Brown. Jasmine remembered hearing whispers, how Tone had tried to expose corruption and was suddenly gone. Now, it was all starting to make sense. But this wasn't just about courtroom decisions. Jasmine dug deeper. She reached out to civil rights attorneys. Some responded cautiously. Others wouldn't speak at all. Too risky, they said. Judge Brown still had power. Friends in high places. The next day, Jasmine returned to the town hall venue for a follow-up segment. This time, the cameras were on because the ratings had exploded. She planned to confront the judge with facts. Cold, hard evidence. She had printed the transcripts, bookmarked the inconsistencies. She was ready. But Judge Brown was different this time. Gone was the smug grin. He looked calculated, almost rehearsed. "You've been doing some digging, Ms. Crockett," he said as the segment opened. "Careful where you tread. Not everyone in Washington likes a woman who doesn't stay in her lane." Jasmine smiled politely. "Luckily for you, Judge, I don't believe in lanes." That's when the ambush happened. Judge Brown pulled out a manila envelope and waved it toward the audience. "Since you want to talk records, let's look at yours. Did your viewers know you once defended a known drug trafficker?" Gasps filled the room. Jasmine's heart skipped, but not out of fear. She knew exactly what he was referring to, a pro bono case from her early days, helping a man wrongfully accused, a man who was later released when the real trafficker confessed. But facts didn't matter in that moment. The crowd was reacting, and the headlines were writing themselves. Judge Brown had declared war. Still, Jasmine stood her ground. "You're reaching back to cases I took to defend the voiceless. I'm proud of my record. Are you?" And just like that, the tide began to shift. Again. But behind the scenes, things were heating up. Jasmine's inbox flooded with hate mail. Her staff received anonymous threats. The judge's allies began whisper campaigns. Some networks pulled their interviews. She was becoming a target, yet she refused to back down. Because this was no longer about winning a debate, it was about exposing a system built to silence the truth. The smear campaign escalated faster than anyone expected. By Monday morning, conservative news outlets were digging into Jasmine Crockett's college years. Photos from law school parties were being shared out of context. One headline read, "Is this who we want in Congress?" Another accused her of divisive identity politics. But Jasmine knew the strategy: distract, distort, discredit. Still, even she couldn't have predicted what came next. A subpoena, delivered to her congressional office in Dallas, signed by the Tennessee State Ethics Review Board. She was being formally investigated for misuse of public influence to interfere in a judicial record. Judge Brown had pulled every string he had. It was an act of desperation, but it was also a warning. Back off, or we bury you. For a moment, just one, Jasmine considered stepping back. Not for herself, but for her team, her family, the people she represented. Every woman who looked up to her, every activist who was still fighting from the margins. But then she got a call that changed everything. It was from Anthony Tone Reeves. He was alive, living quietly under a new name in New Orleans. He'd seen the town hall clips and reached out. They met in secret. No phones, no press, just raw truth. His story confirmed everything Jasmine suspected. Judge Brown had overseen a fabricated witness statement. Tone's attorney had been pressured to take a deal. Brown, it turned out, had ties to a local developer whose property had been damaged during a protest Tone helped organize. The conviction wasn't justice. It was revenge. Jasmine asked if he'd go public. He hesitated. "They already erased my name," he said. "But if my voice helps clear the fog, I'll do it. Just don't let them bury the truth again." That night, Jasmine posted a 2-minute video on social media. No music, no editing, just her sitting in her office, calm and resolute. "This is bigger than me, bigger than Judge Brown. This is about what happens when powerful men think they're untouchable. I've seen enough, and I won't be silent. Not now, not ever." The video hit 1 million views in 12 hours. Comments poured in from across the country: survivors, former defendants, families. Lawyers who had stayed quiet for years now started speaking up. Old cases were reopened, documents leaked. Even lawmakers on both sides began whispering, "She might be onto something." Then came the hearing. A special congressional inquiry was convened, and for the first time, Judge Joe Brown was called to testify under oath. The room was electric. Press lined the walls. Protesters chanted outside. Jasmine, dressed in sharp charcoal gray, sat just feet from the man who tried to destroy her. As the committee opened questioning, Brown was composed, at first. He gave long-winded answers, dismissed the allegations as politically motivated, insisted his record was impeccable. But then Jasmine took the mic. She spoke slowly, controlled. She didn't shout. She didn't grandstand. She simply laid out the timeline, the discrepancies, the voices that had been silenced. She played the recording from her meeting with Tone Reeves, then read from the transcript of case number 30478. And then she turned to Brown, looked him in the eye, and asked, "Do you remember Marcus Delaney, Judge? Or was he just another number in your conviction count?" Brown's hands trembled. Cameras zoomed in. He stammered, I don't recall every details." "That's the problem," Jasmine interrupted. "You forgot the people whose lives you were supposed to protect." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Some clapped. One of the committee members leaned back and said, "Let the record reflect. We are not done here." The tide had turned, but Jasmine knew the storm wasn't over. Not yet. Because in the final part of this story, someone makes one last move that could destroy everything she built, or push her to become something even bigger. 2 days after the hearing, Jasmine Crockett was walking through Union Station when a man in a dark hoodie approached. No words, just a folder, handed off in silence. Then he disappeared into the crowd. Inside the folder, photocopies of sealed court memos, private letters, and a scanned check signed by J. Brown. A payoff. A payoff to a key witness in the Marcus Delaney case, dated just 4 days before the verdict. It was the final nail. But it came with risk. The documents were classified, leaked from inside the Tennessee judiciary. If Jasmine used them, she'd be violating federal law. If she didn't, the truth stayed buried. That night, she didn't sleep. By morning, she made her decision. She contacted a federal whistleblower protection attorney. She followed the right channels, quietly, legally. No headlines, no hashtags, just procedure. And then, she waited. For days, nothing. Then suddenly, an emergency press conference. The Department of Justice announced it was launching a full-scale investigation into Judge Joe Brown's past convictions. They were re-examining 47 cases. The press went wild. Jasmine didn't speak, not yet. She waited until the families of Marcus Delaney, Anthony Reeves, and others were contacted. When she finally addressed the public, it wasn't in a viral video or a combative soundbite. It was in a church basement in South Dallas, surrounded by mothers, sons, students, and neighbors. This fight wasn't about headlines. It was about dignity, about the people the system forgot. "I didn't take this on to be famous. I took it on because silence is no longer an option." Cheers erupted. Tears, too. One of the mothers, her hands trembling, walked up to Jasmine and whispered, "We've waited 20 years to be heard." Meanwhile, Judge Brown was unraveling. He went on cable news, ranting about deep state takedowns and radical women. But the tone had changed. He sounded less like a judge, and more like a man clinging to a crumbling illusion of power. His former allies fell quiet. Some deleted their tweets. Others issued vague statements about needing time to reflect. And then, the bombshell. Brown was suspended from the state bar. A grand jury indictment followed. Charges included perjury, obstruction of justice, and witness tampering. Jasmine never celebrated. There were no champagne toasts, no victory laps. Because this wasn't a game. She continued showing up in Congress. She filed 2 new bills, one proposing national standards for judicial transparency, The other, expanding protections for wrongfully convicted individuals. Both bills passed the House within weeks. Even those who once doubted her began to say it openly. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just a fighter. She was a force, a new kind of leader who didn't ask for permission and didn't wait for justice to arrive politely. Months later, as the DOJ wrapped its review, Marcus Delaney was released from prison, 23 years too late. He hugged his mother on the courthouse steps. Reporters asked what he would do now. He looked toward the crowd and said, "I'm going to find a way to thank the woman who didn't forget us." That evening, Jasmine sat alone in her office. The lights dimmed. A single message flashed across her screen from a supporter. "You didn't just speak for us. You gave us our names back." She smiled, and for the first time in months, exhaled. If you made it this far, thank you. Let us know in the comments. What would you do if you had to stand alone against a system designed to silence you? And if you believe truth always finds its way, no matter how long it takes, subscribe for more real stories that matter. Jasmine Crockett didn't just win an argument. She redefined what justice could look like. And sometimes, that's how history changes.